today's narrative, we delve into a tale so chilling and macabre that it led to an unprecedented sentence in Australian legal history. This tale, with its graphic nature, necessitates viewer discretion. We enter the realm of the mystery sauce, a sanctuary for aficionados of the true crime, the mysterious, the paranormal, and the bizarre. If these themes captivate your curiosity, you've arrived at the perfect destination. I upload twice a week, so please smash the subscribe and like button with a hatchet. Our story begins in 1955, in the heart of a small town in New South Wales, Australia. Here, Catherine Knight was born into a world of profound dysfunction and abuse. Her life, marred by the cruelty of alcoholic parents and callous siblings, was further tainted by the disdain of townspeople who judged her by her family's notoriety. Despite this, Catherine clung to a vision of a brighter future, dreaming of a day when she could nurture a family with the love she never received. As Catherine transitioned into womanhood, her attempts at finding love were consistently thwarted. Each relationship she entered spiraled into toxicity and abuse, reflecting the chaos of her upbringing. Unfamiliar with healthy relationships, Catherine struggled to both be and recognize a good partner. Then, in 1995, fate seemed to offer Catherine a glimmer of hope. At 40, she met John Price, a man who, unlike others, showed empathy towards her troubled past. Their connection was instantaneous and profound. Catherine moved into John's home, where his 3 young daughters quickly grew fond of her. For a fleeting moment, Catherine's life seemed to align with her dreams. However, the idyll was not to last. Tensions rose when marriage discussions surfaced. Catherine yearned for the commitment, a symbol of the family she longed to create. But John, wary from a previous failed marriage, hesitated at the thought of remarriage. This rift between them grew, culminating in a heated altercation in early February of 2000. The confrontation, which began as a verbal clash over marriage in the kitchen, escalated alarmingly. In a moment of chaos, Catherine, driven by a surge of emotion, seized a kitchen knife and slashed John across the chest. This act of violence abruptly ended their dispute, with John demanding Catherine to leave and never return. Both realized a critical boundary had been crossed, marking a dark turn in their tumultuous relationship. In the aftermath of their violent altercation, Catherine, now residing in a nearby apartment, was engulfed by loneliness. Despite acknowledging the toxicity of her relationship with John, she yearned to reconcile. Accustomed to patching up relationships through intimate gestures, Catherine hatched a plan to rekindle their bond. On February 29th, seizing an opportunity when John was away at work, she entered his house with a key she still possessed. There, she briefly interacted with John's 3 daughters before arranging for a babysitter to take them for the night, clearing the way for her planned romantic gesture. Later that evening, John returned home to an empty house, save for a note from Catherine detailing her intentions to make amends. Frustrated and feeling violated by her intrusion and decisions made about his children without his consent, John settled into an uneasy wait for Catherine's return. The following morning, John's absence at work raised alarms. Known for his reliability, his company sent a worker to check on him. Upon arrival, the worker found John's car in the driveway, initially assuming he had simply overslept. However, a lack of response to his knocks and the alarming sight of blood on the door prompted a sense of urgency. After failing to rouse anyone inside, the worker hastily returned to inform his employer, leading to an immediate call to the police. At 8 a.m., the police arrived at a silent and darkened residence, with John's vehicle still parked outside. The scene they encountered was one of eerie stillness, raising a multitude of questions about what lay behind the closed doors of John's house. The police, finding the front door unresponsive to their knocks, ventured to the back of the property. In the backyard, they stumbled upon an unsettling sight. A plate of food, seemingly hurled from the house, lay face down on the grass. This peculiar scene drew their attention to a window, through which they peered to find an interior devoid of people. Inside, a dining room table was laden with an extravagant spread of food, untouched, as if prepared for a grand feast that never commenced. Perplexed by this bizarre tableau, the officers proceeded to the back door. After several unanswered knocks, they forcefully entered the residence. The inside was eerily silent, with no immediate signs of disturbance. They moved past the dining room, calling out for John, but were met with only the quiet darkness of the house. Entering the living room, they were confronted with a horrifying scene. Blood was splattered everywhere, and a large pool of it lay near the front door, where entering the house would mean stepping into this gruesome puddle. Following a blood trail leading away from the pool, they discovered a shocking sight behind the couch. Catherine Knight collapsed and barely clinging to life, while one officer stayed with Catherine, urgently calling for paramedics. The other, weapon drawn, continued to search the house for any other occupants. The search led to a lounge room, seemingly unoccupied, but marked by another blood trail snaking across the floor. This trail led to a curtain, concealing another room. The officer cautiously approached, pushing the curtain aside with a non-shooting hand, bracing for what might lie beyond. In the dimness of the closet, the officer realized with a chilling revelation that the curtain he had brushed aside was not fabric at all. He looked down at his arm, now smeared with blood, and recoiled in horror. This blood was not his own, and its presence on his arm meant only one thing. He had unknowingly touched something far more sinister. The story then takes us back to the previous night, to John, sitting in his living room, seething with anger and waiting for Catherine. As midnight approached without her arrival, his exhaustion from work overcame his anger, and he retired to bed. Later, Catherine entered their bedroom, dressed in black lingerie, and despite John's lingering resentment, they reconciled intimately before falling asleep together. In the dead of night, Catherine awoke, staring at the sleeping John. Overwhelmed by a sudden intense disgust and fueled by a belief that he was exploiting her, she resolved to enact a brutal retribution. Silently, she left the bed, exited the house, and drove to her apartment. There, she retrieved her work tools, a set of butcher's knives from her job at a meat processing factory where she was skilled in butchering. Returning to John's house, Catherine meticulously selected a knife and honed its edge. She then stealthily entered John's bedroom, where he lay asleep and unaware. Climbing onto the bed, she poised herself over him and plunged the knife into his chest. John, propelled by instinct and adrenaline, managed to throw Catherine off and began a desperate escape through the house. However, his strength quickly waned from blood loss. Upon reaching the front door, he collapsed, caught in a liminal space between the safety of the outside world and the terror within his home. In a desperate attempt to escape, John reached out with a bloodied hand to the partially open door, leaving the haunting print the worker later discovered. As he struggled to pull himself out, Catherine, having recovered from the initial confrontation, ran towards him, dragged him back inside, and mercilessly stabbed him an additional 36 times. After leaving John to succumb to his wounds, Catherine methodically prepared for a macabre feast. She set the table for a large family meal, then returned to John's lifeless body. Utilizing her expertise in butchery, she gruesomely skinned him from neck to toe in a single piece, draping this skin over the entrance to a closet. She then decapitated him, placing his head in a pot of boiling water to create a broth. In a twisted culinary endeavor, she butchered his torso and cooked various dishes with his flesh. Setting the table with the ghastly meal, Catherine placed name cards for each of John's children at the plates, intending to feed them their father. After beginning to eat the meal she prepared, She was overcome with sickness, throwing her plate out the window into the backyard, the same plate discovered by the police. Realizing the enormity of her actions, Catherine chose to end her own life. She overdosed on sleeping pills and collapsed in the living room, where she was later found by the paramedics. Miraculously, they managed to save her life. Upon her recovery, Catherine was arrested and found guilty of John's murder. During her sentencing, the judge issued an unprecedented directive. Her file was to be stamped with "never to be released," signifying that she would never be eligible for parole. This sentencing made Catherine the first woman in Australian history to receive life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She remains incarcerated to this day. And with that chilling conclusion, we conclude this harrowing tale.